we gather to discuss questions about the human body, about movement and metabolism, and the intricate dance between what we do and how our bodies respond, I find myself thinking first not about science, but about intention. Why do we ask these questions? What drives our curiosity about walking versus running, about fat loss, about optimization of our physical form? There's something beautiful and something troubling in equal measure about our modern preoccupation with these topics, and I believe we should acknowledge both before we dive into the biochemistry and the physiology. The beautiful part is this: we care about our health. We want to understand our bodies, to live well, to feel strong and capable. The troubling part emerges when this care transforms into anxiety, when understanding becomes obsession, when the question of walking versus running carries an undertone of desperation rather than curiosity. So let me say at the outset that what I hope to offer today is not a prescription for the perfect exercise regimen, but rather a framework for thinking clearly about how your body uses energy, how different forms of movement create different responses, and how you might make choices that align with both scientific understanding and personal sustainability. Let us begin with energy itself, because everything we discuss today flows from this fundamental concept. Your body is constantly consuming energy. Right now, in this moment, as you sit quietly listening, your cells are burning fuel. Your heart muscle contracts rhythmically, requiring energy with each beat. Your respiratory muscles expand your lungs, consuming energy with each breath. Your brain, that extraordinary 3-pound universe between your ears, uses energy voraciously as neurons fire in patterns that create thought, perception, memory. Your liver processes substances, your kidneys filter waste, your digestive system continues its work. All of this happens without conscious effort, without deliberate movement, and it accounts for the majority of the energy you expend each day. This baseline expenditure, what physiologists call your basal or resting metabolic rate, is determined by several factors. Your body size matters tremendously. A larger body requires more energy to maintain basic functions than a smaller one. Your muscle mass matters significantly. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive, requiring constant energy to maintain its structure and function. Your age plays a role, as metabolic rate tends to decline gradually across the lifespan. Your hormonal environment, particularly thyroid function, influences how quickly your cells burn fuel. Even your genetic inheritance contributes, with some individuals simply running their cellular machinery faster or slower than others. But this baseline is just the foundation. When you begin to move, when you stand up and walk across a room or break into a run, you add movement-related energy expenditure on top of your resting metabolism. And here is where our inquiry becomes fascinating, because not all movement is created equal in terms of how your body fuels it, what adaptations it creates, and what long-term effects it produces. Consider what happens at the cellular level when you begin to walk at a comfortable pace. Your muscles need to contract, and muscle contraction requires a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, or API. This is the universal energy currency of life. Every movement, every heartbeat, every thought requires API. Your cells constantly produce it, breaking down fuel sources to generate this essential molecule. When you walk easily, breathing comfortably, able to maintain a conversation, your muscles need EP at a moderate rate. Your body can supply plenty of oxygen to your muscle cells, and this oxygen availability is crucial because it determines which metabolic pathways your cells will use. With abundant oxygen, your mitochondria can completely oxidize fuel molecules, extracting maximum energy through a series of elegant biochemical reactions. This aerobic metabolism is wonderfully efficient but relatively slow. The fuel your body chooses at this comfortable walking intensity is predominantly fat. Why fat? Because fat molecules, though they contain tremendous energy, require time to break down. The process of liberating energy from stored fat involves transporting fatty acids from adipose tissue through your bloodstream, shuttling them into muscle cells, then processing them through beta oxidation and the citric acid cycle. This takes time, requires oxygen, but yields substantial AAP. When you're walking at a pace you can sustain for hours, time is what you have. Your body settles into fat-burning mode, steadily oxidizing fatty acids while sparing your limited glycogen stores. Picture the biochemistry like water flowing through different-sized pipes. Fat metabolism is like a narrow pipe with steady flow. It can't deliver energy rapidly, but it can deliver consistently for extended periods. Your fat stores are vast, even in a lean individual. You carry enough energy in adipose tissue to theoretically walk for days without eating. Now imagine you transition from walking to running. Your pace quickens, your breathing becomes labored, conversation grows difficult or impossible. Your muscles suddenly need API much faster. That narrow pipe of fat metabolism cannot keep up with demand. Your body must open additional pathways, and it does so by increasing reliance on carbohydrate metabolism, specifically the breakdown of glucose and glycogen. Glucose can be metabolized through multiple pathways. When oxygen is plentiful, it follows the same aerobic route as fat, entering mitochondria for complete oxidation. But when you run hard enough that oxygen delivery cannot keep pace with energy demand, glucose can also be partially broken down without oxygen through anaerobic glycolysis. This process is rapid but inefficient, yielding only a small amount of API per glucose molecule and producing lactate as a byproduct. Still, it allows your muscles to generate energy quickly when speed matters more than efficiency. The proportion of fuel coming from fat versus carbohydrate shifts dramatically as exercise intensity increases. During easy walking, perhaps 70 to 80% of energy might derive from fat oxidation. During moderate running, this might drop to 50%. During very intense running, approaching your maximum sustainable pace, carbohydrate might supply 80% or more of your energy, with fat contributing the remainder. This shifting fuel preference leads many people to conclude that walking must be superior for fat loss, since it burns a higher percentage of fat. But this reasoning, while intuitive, overlooks something crucial: total energy expenditure matters enormously. Burning a high percentage of fat while expending modest total energy might result in less absolute fat oxidation than burning a lower percentage of fat while expending substantial total energy. Let me offer some numbers to illustrate, though I want to emphasize these are approximations that vary between individuals. Suppose you walk at a comfortable pace for 40 minutes and burn 200 calories. If 70% comes from fat, you've oxidized about 140 calories worth of fat. Now suppose you run at a moderate pace for 40 minutes and burn 400 calories. Even if only 40% comes from fat, you've oxidized 160 calories worth of fat, plus you've created twice the total energy deficit. But the story doesn't end when you stop moving, and this is where the comparison becomes more nuanced. Your body doesn't simply flip a switch from exercise mode to rest mode the moment you finish running. Instead, your metabolism remains elevated for minutes to hours afterward, depending on the intensity and duration of your exercise. This phenomenon reflects the energy cost of recovery. After a challenging run, your body faces numerous tasks. It must clear lactate from muscles and blood, restore depleted glycogen stores, repair muscle fibers damaged by the mechanical stress of running, restore oxygen levels in blood and muscle, return elevated body temperature to baseline, and rebalance various disturbed systems. All of this requires energy. Researchers call this excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, and it can significantly increase total daily energy expenditure beyond what you burned during the exercise itself. Interestingly, during this recovery period, fat oxidation tends to predominate. Your body preferentially burns fat to fuel these recovery processes, even if it relied heavily on carbohydrate during the exercise. So the runner who burned proportionally less fat during the actual run might burn substantial fat during the hours of recovery. Over a full 24-hour period, total fat oxidation might actually exceed that of the walker, despite the walker burning a higher percentage during the activity. There's another dimension we must consider: the adaptive response your body makes to regular exercise over weeks, months, and years. Your body is not static. It responds to repeated demands by changing, by becoming more capable of meeting those demands efficiently. The specific adaptations depend on the specific stimulus you provide. When you walk regularly, consistently, over extended periods, your body adapts in particular ways. Your mitochondria, those cellular powerhouses I mentioned earlier, increase in both number and size. You develop greater capillary density in your muscles, improving oxygen and nutrient delivery. Your heart becomes more efficient, pumping more blood with each beat. Your muscles develop enhanced ability to oxidize fat. You literally become a better fat-burning machine at moderate intensities. These adaptations are valuable and health-promoting. They improve your cardiovascular health, reduce disease risk, and enhance your functional capacity for daily activities. But from a pure fat loss perspective, there's an irony. As you become more efficient at walking, you burn fewer calories covering the same distance at the same pace. Your body adapts to minimize energy waste. What once cost you 100 calories might eventually cost only 80 or 90 as your biomechanics optimize and your metabolic efficiency improves. Running creates different adaptations. The higher intensity and greater mechanical stress stimulate muscle tissue differently. Your muscles must generate more force with each stride. They experience greater eccentric loading as you absorb impact with each foot strike. This mechanical stimulus, combined with the metabolic demands of running, creates a powerful signal for muscle maintenance and growth, assuming adequate nutrition and recovery. Muscle tissue is metabolically active even at rest. Every pound of muscle you carry increases your basal metabolic rate, meaning you burn more calories all day, every day, sleeping or awake, exercising or sedentary. This is a significant advantage for fat loss because it raises your total daily energy expenditure permanently, not just during exercise sessions. Running, particularly when it includes variations in speed and terrain, helps preserve muscle mass against the gradual loss that otherwise occurs with aging. Some forms of running, especially sprinting and hill running, can even promote muscle growth. Walking, being lower intensity and lower impact, provides less stimulus for muscle preservation. This doesn't mean walking causes muscle loss, but it offers less protection against the natural tendency towards sarcopenia, the age-related decline in muscle mass. An individual who walks exclusively without any higher intensity or resistance training might still experience gradual muscle loss over years, which would gradually lower their resting metabolic rate and make long-term fat loss maintenance more challenging. Yet we must balance these physiological considerations against practical realities of adherence and sustainability. The theoretically optimal exercise program is worthless if you won't or can't follow it. And here walking reveals profound strengths that pure physiology doesn't capture. Running is demanding, not just metabolically, but biomechanically. Each time your foot strikes the ground during running, your body experiences impact forces of 2 to 3 times your body weight. Your joints, tendons, ligaments, and bones must absorb and dissipate these forces hundreds or thousands of times per session. For many people, this repeated impact creates problems. Knees develop pain, ankles become inflamed, plantar fasciitis emerges. Stress fractures appear in bones unaccustomed to such loading. The injury risk of running is real and well documented. Studies suggest that somewhere between 30 and 70% of runners experience an injury each year that disrupts their training. Some of these injuries heal quickly with rest. Others become chronic, nagging problems that persist for months or years. And when injury forces you to stop exercising, not only do you lose the calorie expenditure of your workouts, but the frustration and discouragement can undermine your entire approach to health and fitness. Walking is far gentler biomechanically. Impact forces are lower, typically around 1 to 1.5 times body weight. One foot remains in contact with the ground at all times, unlike running where both feet are airborne during each stride. This reduces stress on joints and connective tissues dramatically. Injury rates among walkers are a small fraction of those among runners. You can walk consistently for years, even decades, without the breakdown that running often eventually produces. This sustainability matters enormously when we consider that fat loss is not a sprint but a marathon, not a 6-week project but a lifelong practice. The person who walks 45 minutes daily for 30 years will accumulate vastly more movement, more energy expenditure, more health benefits than the person who runs intensely for 6 months before injury or burnout forces cessation. There's also the accessibility dimension. Running requires a baseline level of fitness and biomechanical capability that not everyone possesses, especially when beginning a movement practice. If you're significantly overweight, have joint problems, suffer from cardiovascular disease, or simply haven't exercised in years, running might be inappropriate or even dangerous initially. It requires clearance from healthcare providers, gradual progression, careful attention to form and footwear. Walking requires almost nothing. You can walk regardless of current fitness level. You can walk at any age, with most injuries carrying substantial excess weight while managing chronic diseases. You need only supportive shoes and a safe place to move. The barriers to entry are minimal, and this accessibility means more people can actually begin and maintain a walking practice. The psychological dimension deserves careful consideration as well. Exercise affects not just your body, but your mind, your emotions, your relationship with physical activity. Running, especially for beginners, can feel punishing. The breathlessness creates anxiety. The muscle burn feels threatening. The fatigue can be overwhelming. If every exercise session feels like suffering, if you dread each workout, if movement becomes associated with discomfort and inadequacy, you're building a psychological relationship that undermines long-term adherence. Some people break through this initial difficulty and come to love running. They discover the runner's high, that euphoric state produced by endorphin release during sustained effort. They find meditation in motion, losing themselves in rhythm and breath. They enjoy testing their limits, seeing improvement, conquering challenges. For these individuals, running provides intrinsic rewards that make it sustainable and meaningful beyond its contribution to fat loss. But many people never develop this love affair with running. For them, it remains uncomfortable, even miserable, something endured rather than enjoyed. Walking, by contrast, rarely provokes such negative responses. It feels natural, almost meditative. Many people find that walking reduces stress, clears mental fog, provides time for reflection and problem solving. Walking in nature offers particular psychological benefits, reducing rumination and improving mood in ways that might indirectly support fat loss by reducing stress-related eating. We should also examine how different intensities of exercise affect appetite and subsequent food intake, because creating an energy deficit requires not just burning calories, but also managing intake. Exercise influences appetite through complex mechanisms involving hormones like ghrelin, leptin, and peptide Y, as well as neurological hunger and satiety signals. The relationship is far from simple and varies considerably between individuals. Some research suggests that high-intensity exercise temporarily suppresses appetite for a period after the workout. You finish a hard run and don't feel particularly hungry for an hour or two. Lower-intensity exercise like walking might not produce this appetite suppression or might even slightly increase hunger. If these effects were consistent and substantial, they might favor running for fat loss. However, appetite suppression is often followed by compensatory eating. You might not feel hungry immediately after running, but later in the day or over subsequent days, hunger increases. Your body attempts to restore the energy deficit you created. Many people unconsciously eat more after starting an exercise program, partially or completely offsetting the calories they burned. There's also a psychological component, the feeling that you've earned extra food because you exercised, that you deserve a reward for your effort. This might be stronger after exercise that felt particularly challenging or unpleasant. If running feels like suffering, you might be more inclined to reward yourself with high-calorie treats that negate the energy deficit you worked hard to create. Walking, being less stressful and more enjoyable for many people, might trigger less compensatory eating. You don't feel you've suffered through an ordeal requiring reward. The psychological relationship is healthier, less transactional. But again, individual variation is enormous. Some people can run hard without increasing intake. Others walk gently but find themselves eating more anyway. Let me turn our attention to what happens outside of formal exercise sessions, because total daily movement matters tremendously for energy balance. Researchers have identified something called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, representing all the calories you burn through daily activities that aren't formal workouts. Walking to your car, taking stairs, doing household chores, fidgeting, maintaining posture, all the small movements that accumulate across a day. For many people, non-exercise activity thermogenesis contributes more to total energy expenditure than formal exercise does. And here's the interesting part. Intense exercise might suppress these activities. After a grueling run, you feel exhausted. You sit more, move less, choose the elevator over stairs, skip the evening walk you might otherwise have taken. Without realizing it, you might reduce daily movement enough to partially offset the calories burned during your workout. Walking, being less fatiguing, might not suppress these spontaneous activities. In fact, regular walking might increase your overall activity level by making you feel more energetic and capable throughout the day. You might naturally choose movement over sedentarism in small ways that accumulate significantly over time. The hormonal milieu created by different exercise intensities is complex and consequential. Exercise influences cortisol, your primary stress hormone. In appropriate doses, cortisol is beneficial, part of the adaptive response to physical challenge. But chronically elevated cortisol, resulting from excessive exercise stress combined with inadequate recovery, can impair fat loss and even promote fat accumulation, particularly in visceral adipose tissue around your organs. Intense running creates a significant acute cortisol spike. For well-recovered individuals exercising appropriately, this is fine, even beneficial. But for someone already dealing with high life stress, poor sleep, demanding work, and perhaps overexercising, adding hard runs might push cortisol chronically high enough to work against fat loss. For these individuals, walking provides the benefits of movement without adding excessive stress. Growth hormone and testosterone, important for muscle maintenance and fat metabolism, respond to exercise intensity. Higher intensity exercise generally promotes greater release of these anabolic hormones. This is one mechanism through which running might preserve muscle mass and support favorable body composition better than walking alone. Insulin sensitivity improves with both walking and running, though intense exercise might produce somewhat greater improvements. Better insulin sensitivity means your body handles glucose more effectively, storing less as fat and burning more for energy. This metabolic improvement contributes to fat loss and overall metabolic health. Your genetic inheritance influences how you respond to different types of exercise. Research has identified genetic variants that predict better fat loss response to endurance training versus strength training or to high-intensity versus moderate-intensity work. While we don't yet have practical tools for personalizing exercise prescriptions based on genetics for most people, we can observe and experiment with our own bodies. If you've been running consistently for months without seeing body composition changes, perhaps your genetics favor response to different stimuli. Maybe incorporating more walking or different forms of exercise entirely would yield better results. Or vice versa. The beautiful thing about your body is that it provides feedback if you pay attention. Age profoundly influences these considerations. A healthy 20-year-old and a 70-year-old face different realities regarding exercise capacity, recovery, injury risk, and appropriate programming. The young person generally tolerates high-intensity work well, recovers quickly, carries low injury risk, and might see excellent fat loss results from regular running. The older individual must weigh intensity against injury risk and recovery capacity more carefully. Joints have accumulated decades of wear. Connective tissue becomes less resilient. Recovery takes longer. Hormonal environment shifts toward less anabolic states. For many older adults, walking forms the sustainable foundation of a movement practice, perhaps supplemented with some faster intervals or brief jogging rather than sustained running. Your current body composition also matters. Someone carrying significant excess weight faces different challenges than someone near their goal weight. The heavier individual experiences much greater joint stress during running. Each foot strike generates forces amplified by body mass. At 300 pounds, running might cause immediate injury or at least chronic joint pain. Walking is safer, more sustainable, and still provides substantial energy expenditure due to moving a larger mass through space. As that person loses weight through walking and nutrition management, running might become feasible. But forcing running prematurely risks injury that derails all progress. The person near their goal weight might be in the opposite situation. Their body has already adapted to their current routine. Walking at their usual pace has become metabolically efficient. They need novel stimulus to promote further change. Introducing some running or higher intensity intervals might provide that stimulus. We rarely discuss pleasure and meaning in conversations about fat loss, yet they matter enormously. Exercise is not merely a tool for manipulating body composition. It's also an opportunity to experience your body as capable, strong, alive. Some people find profound joy in running. They love the rhythmic breathing, the heightened awareness, the sense of power and speed, the challenge of pushing limits. For them, running is not just exercise but a source of meaning and identity. Others find their joy in walking. They love observing the world at a human pace, noticing details that blur past at running speed. They appreciate the gentleness, the sustainability, the fact that they can walk while thinking deeply or conversing with companions. This enjoyment creates sustainability that no amount of physiological optimization can match. If you force yourself to run because you believe it's superior for fat loss, but you hate every moment, how long will you continue? Months perhaps, maybe a year if your willpower is extraordinary. But eventually, the misery becomes unsustainable, and you quit. Whereas if you genuinely enjoy walking and do it enthusiastically, you might continue for the rest of your life. The person who walks with joy for 30 years will ultimately be far healthier and leaner than the person who runs miserably for 1 year before quitting. Your broader exercise context matters significantly. Exercise doesn't exist in isolation. If you're regularly performing resistance training, building muscle through weightlifting, or bodyweight exercises, the role of cardiovascular exercise shifts. You're already providing powerful stimulus for muscle maintenance and metabolic rate elevation through your strength work. In this context, adding walking for additional calorie expenditure and cardiovascular health might be more appropriate than adding running, which could compromise recovery from lifting. Conversely, if walking is your only form of exercise, you might benefit from incorporating some higher intensity work to provide stimulus you're not otherwise receiving. This needn't be formal running. It could be walking up hills, walking with a weighted vest, interval training alternating faster and slower walking paces, or brief jogging intervals mixed into your walks. The most truthful answer to which is better for fat loss is almost certainly both, in proportions determined by your individual circumstances. The human body thrives on varied stimulus. Different intensities activate different energy systems, create different adaptations, challenge your physiology in complementary ways. A program consisting entirely of one intensity, whether low or high, allows complete adaptation to that specific stress while leaving other capacities untrained. An ideal approach for many people might involve primarily walking for its sustainability, accessibility, and gentle stress profile with some higher intensity work mixed in perhaps twice weekly to maintain muscle, challenge cardiovascular capacity differently, and prevent metabolic adaptation. Or it might involve primarily running if you love it and can do it safely, with easier walking sessions for active recovery and additional energy expenditure without excess stress. The principle of progressive overload, well known in strength training, applies to fat loss as well. Your body adapts to repeated stimulus by becoming more efficient. If you walk the same route at the same pace every day for months, your body becomes extraordinarily efficient at that specific task, burning fewer calories to accomplish it. Preventing complete adaptation requires variation. Some days longer, some days faster, some days hillier, some days including running intervals. This variation maintains stimulus for adaptation. What I hope has become clear is that there is no universally correct answer to our question. Bodies differ, lives differ. Goals, preferences, limitations, and capabilities all vary enormously between individuals. The theoretically optimal exercise prescription for fat loss for you, specifically with your unique genetic endowment, current fitness, injury history, time availability, and personal preferences, might be entirely different from what's optimal for anyone else. What I can state confidently is that both walking and running contribute positively to fat loss when integrated into a sustainable lifestyle. Running offers advantages in calorie expenditure per unit time, muscle preservation, and metabolic after-effects. Walking offers advantages in accessibility, injury risk, sustainability, and psychological palatability. Neither is universally superior, because superiority depends on context, on the individual, on what can actually be sustained over the months and years required for meaningful fat loss and maintenance. The person who walks daily for decades will be healthier and leaner than the sedentary person. The person who runs regularly, if they avoid injury and burnout, will likely achieve excellent results. And the person who finds balance between intensities, who listens to their body's signals, who exercises not from anxiety but from respect and care for their physical form, who chooses movement they actually enjoy rather than endure, this person might find the greatest success of all, not just in fat loss, but in sustainable health and genuine well-being.